I am not a bounty hunter. I've heard otherwise. I know that you sit on the throne of your former employer.
Jabba ruled with fear. I intend to rule with respect.
You were all once captains under Jabba the Hutt.
I'm here to make a proposal that's mutually beneficial. Why speak of conflict when cooperation can make us all rich?
What prevents us all from killing you and taking what we want?
If you had spoken such insolence to Jabba, he'd have fed you to his menagerie.
Please. Speak freely.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. My name is Matthew, and you just watched the Book of Boba Fett official trailer, and now I'm going to try something I've never really done on the channel. I'm going to do a breakdown of this trailer and the theories, and see if it is something that I should continue doing in the future. Without further ado, let's launch right into the first clip. Our first shot of this trailer is actually just one of the Tatooine suns rising over the horizon, which I do think is kind of interesting because we are used to classic shots, whether it be from Episode 3 or Episode 4 or Episode 9, of the twin suns on Tatooine, and for once they switched it up and we just see the first of the two rising over the horizon. As we look at the Tatooine sun in the distance, we get a Biomar monk walking up the hill. The Biomar monks were actually the owners of Jabba's palace before it was Jabba's palace. It was called the Biomar Monk Monastery, run by the Biomar Order. And basically, the easiest way to explain these guys is they had their own cult and religion, and when their bodies were deteriorating, they found a way to keep their brains in these little brain bowls, and that's essentially what you're looking at. It's a brain bowl monk that can't talk, he can just think, and that's all that remains of their order. Another interesting fact about these guys is that in the comics, they actually trick Bib Fortuna, and they turn him into a brain bowl, and that's his fate. That's the end of his life, trapped in eternity in a brain bowl, just thinking. And it's super creepy to think about, but they changed it for the Disney canon and have Bib Fortuna instead being killed by Boba Fett in Jabba's palace at the end of the Mandalorian Season 2 finale, and I honestly think this change is going to be for the better. The second shot we get is of Boba being handed his iconic dented helmet by a servant or a slave of some sort. This makes me wonder though, is this a slave? Because in the finale of Mandalorian Season 2, we get to see Finnick release a Twi'lek slave girl from Jabba's palace. Now we know from the Bad Batch that Finnick has a soft spot and was actually attempting to protect Omega from Cad Bane. In the Clone Wars we see Boba Fett have no remorse towards giving a young lady away to a king against her will, and we also don't see him have any remorse or care towards the slaves in the original trilogy. For those of you wondering, there is a time jump of 5 years between Return of the Jedi and the events of the Book of Boba Fett and the Mandalorian, which occur around the same time, within months of each other. So I think this could be an interesting dynamic, with Finnick having a soft spot for slaves and those that are abused. And I can't help but wonder if Boba is a nicer or more merciful leader now, or if he's even against slavery. I wonder if they will butt heads over servants and slaves. We then get the Lucasfilm title card, and then Boba and Finnick looking up at a building. More on that in just a moment. As they walk, they're getting stares from the common folk, and these two fellows right here, they look like moisture farmers, which of course would fit for Tatooine. and Boba and Finnick are standing out very much in the crowd as they walk towards this building. In the next short shot, we get to see an Ithorian sitting on a throne of sorts, making it clear that the building is another crime lord's base of operations. I know some people's minds might jump to Jedi Temple, but it is 100% not a Jedi Temple. It is a rival crime lord's base, and it's exciting to me because he instantly is wary of Boba and doesn't trust him, because like he says,
I know that you sit on the throne of your former employer.
Boba now sits on Jabba's throne, and if it's true, which it is, this event probably takes place within weeks after Boba kills Bib Fortuna. So honestly, I'm excited to see more of Boba Fett, but I think it's fair of the Ithorian crime lord to be wary of Boba since he just killed another crime lord. In the next shot, this is really cool. We get a pan out of a massive city on Tatooine. At first watching the trailer, I thought, could this be Mos Eisley? Now, I'm a huge Star Wars nerd. I've read multiple books and I've watched every show. No city like this is ever seen in any of these materials. Now, as fans from the books, comics, and shows, we know of Mos Eisley, Mos Pelgo, Mos Espa, Mos Intha, Mos Elrey, Mos Doba, Bestine, which is the capital of Tatooine. It's only mentioned in the 1976 novelization Star Wars The Adventures of Luke Skywalker, and it's actually featured in some Star Wars Galaxies video games, and Anchorhead. The best explanation I can provide on this is that they are making a comic or expanded universe story location canon and pulling from the Legends material, which can be a good thing. A perfect example is the new way of them spinning Bib Fortuna's fate, which really is designed to help make the show. Or this could be explained by it making sense that the New Republic in its early years still haven't conquered or tamed Tatooine. So even with the New Republic rising, they still haven't been able to tame Tatooine. But with the crime empires still being active on this planet, such as the Collective and the Red Key Raiders, this could really be a massive boom in growth, economy, and expansion solely off of illegal and black market activities. This could technically be a prospering Mos Eisley, or even the first appearance of the capital of Tatooine on screen. So far, this first 40 seconds of the trailer was just a tease, and I loved every moment of it. However, we break into the real meat of the trailer with a monologue from Boba.
Jabba ruled with fear. I intend to rule with respect.
Now, just from this little monologue, there are 3 shots to break down. First, we get a shot of Boba's throne. It looks a little bit different from Jabba's throne. I can't help but wonder if there was a little bit of a redesign. Second, we get to witness a standoff between Boba, Finnick, some clueless-looking Gamorrean guards, and what appears to be mercenaries or smugglers for hire. I would presume that this is close in proximity to Boba meeting the Ithorian crime lord, likely even the same episode, and that these are some of his henchmen. Last, we see Boba and Finnick standing helmetless, looking off-screen, likely in the same sequence from them arriving at the Ithorian's base. This could also very well be from the same episode with the Ithorian crime lord, which I personally assume will be the pilot episode. I think it's the pilot episode because they likely wouldn't show us many clips that would reveal the main story or the plot of the later half of the season. In fact, I doubt that any shot in the trailer is from the second half at all. Next, we see the Book of Boba Fett is streaming exclusively on Disney+, obviously. After this, it breaks into another shot of Jabba's palace. Unless this is a misdirect, as we know these major studios are known to do with some trailers, we then get to zoom inside to a never-before-seen area of the palace. Likely a dining room where Boba and Finnick are hosting a meeting with Jabba's remaining captains. I actually was super excited about this 5 to 8 second clip because I'm pretty sure I noticed something that many big YouTube channels might not catch. And I'll talk more about that in a moment. Firstly, these Trandoshans look amazing! The makeup department has improved on their design so much from The Mandalorian Season 1 Episode 2, and they look absolutely stunning. So if anyone from production sees this, kudos to you. The captains are made up of multiple species, but all are species that are typically involved in underworld activity. We of course have the Trandoshans, but also some Aqualish and some Klatooinians, and what looks to be a Nikto in the back left. I will admit I am a bit surprised there are no Weequay captains, since there are many defending Jabba's sail barge during Luke Skywalker's rescue of Princess Leia. The huge Easter egg that I think I will be one of the small amounts of fans to notice is this captain right here. This captain looks exactly like Barada. Now, if you do not recognize the significance of this, it is a very small detail from Return of the Jedi. But I've watched Star Wars so many times, I did some investigating. When I was little, my parents got me this Star Wars deck of cards, and every single card has a different character on it. And I specifically remember the villain deck of cards. The number 5 card is Barada, who is a skiff guard on Jabba's sail barge. Now, you can't tell me this does not look like the very same skiff guard that fought Luke on the top deck of the sail barge. If it is him, first of all, I'll be very proud of myself if this is correct. But also, this captain in particular could be very dangerous for Boba to recruit if he has any imaginations that Jabba's assets are his by right. But truly, any of these captains could think that as Jabba's last living, highest-ranked captains. In my opinion, it is very smart of Boba to gather these remaining captains, both to make sure they know who the rightful owner of Jabba's remaining assets is, to seek potential high-level recruits, and to smell out any who may need to be put down, including Barada. I will say Boba's line on intending to rule with respect does confuse me a little on his morals and mindset as an adult, and I'll talk more on that later. Next, we get a very simple moving shot of Boba and Fennec standing on the balcony of the palace. I will say I'm admittedly surprised at the level of camaraderie between them. And you don't need to yell at me for saying that. I know they are close, especially since he rescues her in the end of Mando Season 1 and throughout seeing them in Mando Season 2. We technically don't know if they met before or if she just owed him her life because of that moment. But they could have met since Bad Batch Omega is Boba's sister by DNA and Fennec was trying to save her. Which we don't know yet, but it could lead to Boba and Omega meeting sometime in Bad Batch Season 2. Which could be where we see Boba and Fennec meet for the first time, unless they really did just meet when he saved her that night on Tatooine. I do also think it's curious to see how in every shot she is always by his side. She's clearly his top lieutenant. However, I can't help but wonder if this shot is a tease of a forming relationship. Now, we previously had never gotten a close-up of the top of the palace, but to me it seems like this would either be them having a quiet toast, possibly to some level of success in their meeting with the captains, or it would only make sense to me that the top of the tower would be the master bedroom. Now, technically, strategically, you could say security for the palace could be there to see for miles, but from what we know of Jabba, I'm 95% sure that this is the master bedroom, master suite, so the crime lord could see the planet for miles. Therefore, this is why I wonder if a relationship is forming between Boba and Fennec. The lights inside are dimly lit as they quietly watch the dusk or dawn together. I will say from what we've seen so far, they obviously have high levels of a partnership. Even though Fennec owes him her life debt, it has felt to me at least like they have had trust and a bond already formed by the time of the second season of The Mandalorian. And with such a high dependence and reliance on each other with the new dangers they face with Boba trying to rule the underworld, I could see a relationship forming in the middle of all that. However, I'll also argue against myself by saying I really enjoy their platonic relationship and friendship, and I feel like more movies or shows should do this. We all love Star Wars, and for me at least, I don't think every movie or show needs to add a romance to make it good. A perfect example of another recent Disney property is Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. I absolutely loved the friendly banter between Shang-Chi and Katie throughout the movie, and their friendship through the whole thing. Their bond throughout the movie is precious and funny, and the director didn't have to even add a love interest for Shang-Chi's first solo outing. It was just a guy and a girl who supported each other and were besties. So I say all that to the point of, I hope Star Wars directors continue to focus on the story of the Skywalker saga we love, play this right, and keep it story-driven, and not feel like they have to add a romance to appeal to audiences. Because for me so far, the platonic friendship, trust, and support that Boba and Fennec have provided for each other is perfect. And while they could absolutely write and play a romance correctly, I do feel that a romance is not needed between these two. In this section, we get some super quick clips, starting with some that there isn't much to say about. The first is a group of Tusken Raiders walking through a dust storm. Then we get what looks to be Fennec possibly finishing off an opponent with a throwing knife. To me, it doesn't look like the Ithorian's base, so she could be making an example of someone that refuses Boba's offer of cooperation. Next is Boba using his iconic EE3, not E33. We get to see his iconic EE3 carbine rifle to push through some drapes into a building escorted by Gamorrean guards. The next shot is of Twi'leks looking at who we are led to believe is Boba and Finnick, but this could also be a misdirect. The shot of the Twi'leks makes me think that this lady on the right is in charge of a high-end brothel or a bar of some sorts, and I feel like Boba and Finnick wouldn't need to be escorted by guards to enter a low-class place full of scum and villainy, like the bar in A New Hope. I initially thought this could be them being escorted into the Ithorian's base, but as seen in this shot, his base has a metal door, and this really could not be a misdirect. It could just be them walking into a brothel or a bar. There's a lot to break down in this section, you guys, but the first shot we get is of Slave One flying hundreds of feet above Tatooine's surface. Then we get to witness what feels like it's about to be a challenge to Boba's rule from the Klatooinian captain at the other end of the table. He even points at Boba and threatens to kill him. Now initially, I thought Boba might incinerate this man, but Finnick and Boba both stay calm and meet eyes while keeping their cool. As the captain finishes his questioning threat, we get a shot of Boba's helmet hitting the sand and silver coins falling out. These are clearly not galactic credits, plus if you remember what Watto reminds Qui-Gon in The Phantom Menace.
Saying which, how's he gonna pay for all of this?
I have 20,000 Republic Dactaries.
Republic credits? Republic credits are no good out here. I need something more real.
I don't have anything else, but credits will do fine.
No, they won't.
Credits will do fine.
No, they won't. What, you think you're some kind of Jedi waving your hand around like that? I'm a Toydarian. My tricks don't work on me. Only money. No money, no parts, no deal.
Also, if you think about it, at this point in time, the galaxy has switched from Republic Galactic credits to Imperial credits, and now New Republic has their own version now called Alliance credits. Now, yes, I know they're all credits. I'm just using this as an example because in a period of about 30 years, the galaxy has switched what kind of credits they use 3 times, and that's why these underworld and backwater planets won't even deal in credits. They just refuse to. If you remember in the beginning of the trailer, the Ithorian crime lord actually allows them to walk in peacefully, as in his monologue from earlier, he's clearly talking to Boba when he says,
I know that you sit on the throne of your former employer.
Now to me, this actually fits together that he allowed them to walk in because he was actually curious of what Boba's offer of cooperation was, that he also gave to the captains, or whatever Boba had to say in general. It is also my belief that these are the Ithorian's men ambushing Boba and Finnick just moments after they leave his base. So when Boba drops his helmet in this shot, it's full of his cooperation offer for the Ithorian. This trailer is so cool, you guys. As the mercenaries surround Boba and Finnick, we see Boba spin around looking at them, and his face just says, "You dare?" That's what it looks like. We then get a clip of Boba going savage on these mercenaries and taking one's head off screen. Now I do have more comments on this, but I will save it for the end of the video in my Boba's mindset section. Next we get to see Finnick standing loyally by Boba's side and telling the guards,
If you had spoken such insolence to Jabba, he'd have fed you to his menagerie.
This causes the other captains to look towards the Klatooinian at the end of the table with uncertainty, and even he looks fazed by this comment. I will also say I was surprised by the captain's boldness to Boba, because after serving Jabba for years, you would think the captains would know the stories and legends surrounding Boba Fett the best. Also, regarding Jabba's menagerie, my mind instantly jumps to his Rancor, as, of course, that is the most well-known among Star Wars fans, and also in the world of Star Wars, unless some consider the Great Pit of Carkoon Jabba's as well. Technically, it's just a wild creature. I bring this up though to say that Jabba's menagerie was not just these 2 creatures featured in Return of the Jedi. He also owned many other creatures such as the Kowikian monkey lizard, Salacious Crumb, who I also wanted to put in a chokehold. Regarding the Rancor and the Great Pit of Carkoon, both of them are actually confirmed dead at this point in the timeline, so I can't help but wonder if Boba Fett will find or get a Beastmaster like Malically. We actually know in canon that this Beastmaster did in fact survive through Return of the Jedi. Shocked that the rebels were able to not only escape execution, but also that they got away with killing his pet Rancor and Jabba the Hutt. The Beastmaster then had kind of his own adventure, and eventually settled down with the former head chef of Jabba's palace. They became business partners in Mos Eisley, where they opened the Crystal Moon restaurant. I don't see him being too crucial for Boba, but hey, we could see it. Maybe. We then end the trailer with Boba saying,
Please, Speak freely.
To the captains at his table. And I will say, this threw me off because I thought he was about to go ham on this Klatooinian captain. Now thinking about it, it goes along with what Boba said earlier.
Jabba ruled with fear. I intend to rule with respect.
It seems Boba is going for a very different approach than his predecessor, and this has me curious, what is Boba's mindset? Regarding Boba's mindset, I have to admit I was surprised by his approach to things. In this trailer, he tells the captains he intends to rule with respect. Then later on in this same meeting, one of the Klatooinians incites conflict with his questioning threat to Boba. Then Finnick reminds the Klatooinian what Jabba would have done to him, to kind of show that Boba is different, that he is better, because Boba keeps his cool, and he tells the man to speak freely. Now that last line of the trailer with the music is chillingly awesome, but these two moments from the trailer make me question what we know about Boba's mindset. Now to explain why I feel this is odd for Boba means I need to explain his backstory to prove my points. I'll tell you guys honestly that I'm a massive Star Wars nerd. I've read the 6 Boba Fett books that describe his adventures and point of view, through the events of Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, to the beginnings of his bounty hunter career. I do recommend reading the series. It's a great read. It has amazing moments, including a one-on-one with Grievous, an attempt to kill Wat Tambor, a fight with the Saz Ventress, and Teen Boba smack-talking Count Dooku. I've also seen every show he is in. Because of this, I know from the books that Boba is cautious, smart, and quick to anger. The Clone Wars also adds to his personality by showing him for the first time in the show on this angry and revengeful plan to avenge his father's death. However, we get to see his soft side when he can't kill Commander Pon since he has his father's face. Later in this same arc, Bossk is captured and Aurra Sing abandons Boba while he's crying for help. I believe watching Aurra Sing shoot a man with his father's face point blank, and also his only parent figure abandoning him, that both events hardened his heart even more, and Aurra leaving him left his heart broken and betrayed.
She left me.
We don't see Boba for quite some time until we see an angry teenage Boba in a Coruscant Supermax with Bossk, which means he has had to sit on these feelings of betrayal, being abandoned, and his anger for years. We can see from his next arc with Ventress and his team of bounty hunters that he is clearly hardcore and has lost that bit of humanity where he was going to spare Commander Pons, because he sees that his cargo is a woman and still does not care. Even Ventress, the ex-assassin, shows more compassion than Boba in this arc. Then the biggest time jump with Boba is to Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, where fans were first introduced to him. By the time of the original trilogy, he is the most famous and ruthless bounty hunter in the galaxy, surpassing his father Jango's fame, Bossk, and all the other current bounty hunters. Although we all love the original trilogy, I think we can agree that even though it is amazing and we can still love the fight scenes, is that they were hindered by the time they were made. Many young fans may not understand how hugely popular Boba Fett was back in the 80s. He first appeared in the 1978 Star Wars Holiday Special, and fans were geeking over him before he would make his first movie appearance in Episode 5 in 1980. Fun fact, Boba originally had the Amban rifle in this holiday special that was cut for the original trilogy, but was used and brought back for The Mandalorian Season 1. In the original trilogy, we only get to see him in one fight sequence. Now, if you're mad at me for saying the original trilogy was hindered by its time, I will admit that this fight sequence alone was so wicked great that it made us fans love Boba Fett since we were children all the way until now. We have loved this character since audiences thought he met his demise in 1983's Return of the Jedi until 2020. The only hint of his survival we got was a chapter in the Aftermath trilogy of books, Book 1, where Cobb Vanth, who is, yes, the first book character to be made canon in Star Wars, like Saw Gerrera was the first animated character to move to the big screen. Well, Vanth follows a crime syndicate member named Adwin Charu to a sandcrawler where he meets with some Jawas. After warning Charu to tell the Red Key Raiders to cease their operations, he looks at what the Jawas have. Now, these are the exact Jawas that got to the injured and dying Great Pit of Carkoon first. The explosion of Jabba's sail barge had blown away part of the Great Dune Sea to reveal the Sarlacc's stomach and other areas. These Jawas raided centuries of acid-scorched armor and weapons from its stomach. Cobb examines the wreckage of Jabba's sail barge and discovers what Charu was trying to leave with, which is an acid-scarred set of Mandalorian armor. Now, I'm pretty sure when everyone read this in 2015, we were all losing our collective minds at just the tease and the thought of Boba returning. Which Vanth then leaves with, then appearing for the first time on screen in Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 1. In the 37 years that went by since Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, this was our only hint and tease in 2015 that Boba may have survived, and we finally got to see him again in Mandalorian Season 2, where he was just as ruthless and fearsome as we left him in Episode 6. The Mandalorian takes place 5 years after the Emperor's defeat in Return of the Jedi, which means it makes sense that Boba is still ruthless and fearsome when we see him. However, just like with the jump between Boba's first Clone Wars arc, where we see him unwilling to execute a man that looks like his father, to his next arc where he is hardened and full of anger and no remorse, we now have another gap that is even bigger this time to think. How has Boba changed now? What is his current mindset? Because I think we can all agree it was epic to see more fight sequences with him going off on stormtroopers. So, I explained all of these formulative events in his backstory to get to this point. I initially was surprised by Boba's willingness to work with these crime lords in the trailer. I initially expected him to go off on the Klatooinian for even suggesting killing him at his own table. But like the gap in the Clone Wars arc, Boba has changed his mindset and worldview again. We can obviously see that he can still be fearsome and ruthless, but he attempted to be civil with Mando when he confronted him for his father Jango's armor on Tython in Season 2, Episode 6 of The Mandalorian. I also remember when he told Mando,
Then our deal is complete.
Not quite.
How so?
We agreed, in exchange for the return of my armor, we will ensure the safety of the child.
The child's gone.
Until he is returned to you safely, we are in your debt.
that I was very excited, but that I felt it was a little out of character. By that, I mean I was surprised that Boba would care or even have a sense of honor. Because Boba for years has been fueled by profit and fame and would literally disintegrate his bounties whenever he could. Now I see clearly that whatever took place in the time jump between Episode 6 and Mando Season 2 clearly changed Boba Fett. Now I don't think we will get flashbacks or anything in the Book of Boba Fett, but I do think that his 5 years on Tatooine, just as a man not recognized as a famed bounty hunter, that he may have found peace with his father's death and become a slightly better man. Now Boba has always been smart, as his father made sure Boba was prepared in the event of his death, even leaving him holo recordings on Slave 1 in the Boba Fett books. He seems to be calmer and more willing to listen to others' opinions. I think during this time, Boba had lots of time to think about his life and reflect. While I don't think he regrets all his murders, it seems he has some new sense of honor, and that could be a contributing factor to why he was willing to let the crime lords speak freely. Casual viewers may not have considered this, but it is also curious that Boba waited 5 years in the desert of Tatooine before deciding to raid Jabba's palace and claim it for himself. All in all, I would say we got to see a very different man in Mando Season 2 and did not get enough of him to know it yet. Boba seems to have grown as a character. To defend him and better understand why he gave the captains and crime lords the freedom to speak freely, I would say that like Jango taught him, Boba is smart. And although he could rule with fear, as Jabba did, and could 100% destroy any of these people, Boba knows he's going to need supporters of his own and not just henchmen, but captains. Which is another reason that Boba is smart, because he reaches out to Jabba's captains almost immediately to ask for their support. Instead of just recruiting his own men, Boba recruits men to recruit their own men for him. Another thing to consider is that Boba spectated Jabba's way of ruling for years, and I don't think even he would deny its effectiveness, but I am curious to see how Boba's newer approach to rule will work. Regarding Boba's mindset, I would say that he is playing his cards as best he can and being cautious during the early days as his rule is not secured yet. His first goals are likely to secure his foothold on Tatooine first, which is another reason I believe the entire trailer is just from episodes 1 and 2. Boba has to establish his home turf as quick as possible. And, since it has been 5 years since his disappearance, plenty of scum and villainy such as the Collective from the flashback in Mando Season 2, Episode 1 have moved in. This also includes Jabba's old captains and the Ithorian crime lord. I do still believe though that the Boba from Mando and this trailer is fearsome and ruthless. He exhibits a new mindset and is making smart moves to secure his rule, but we will still get to see him absolutely destroying his enemies. A perfect example of this is we get to see him giving the captains a chance to make the right decision and speak freely when he meets them, even keeping his cool head through being threatened by one of them. But if I'm right and those mercenaries in the street ambushed Boba and Fennec for the Ithorian crime lord right after they left his base, that guy will be shown no mercy. We could see the rage in Boba's eyes and the shock that the Ithorian would dare to do this. Boba is clearly enraged, and I would say it is because he is attempting to be honorable, listen to these other crime lords or captains' thoughts without just murdering them, but the Ithorian does the exact opposite of that. The Ithorian had the Jabba mindset. I believe that the Ithorian is about to be vibe checked out of existence by Boba right after this scene. I also think this would be cool but intimidating to watch, and that although Boba is attempting to rule with respect and talk first, I think he will on average keep his cool longer than Jabba, but that when people such as this Ithorian do manage to break his cool, that Boba's rage fits will be far worse than Jabba's. I 100% doubt this Ithorian will make it through one episode. My first theory could be very divisive, and it's my favorite theory I have, but I have a theory that Boba Fett could at some point be challenged by Jabba's long out of the spotlight son, Rada the Hutt. Now, we do not know much about Rada. He was last seen in the Clone Wars movie because Jabba, like most parents, after the kidnapping and attempted murder of his son by the Separatists, was scared for his only offspring and sent Rada away. At first, I thought possibly to Nal Hutta, since that's the homeworld of the Hutts, but I doubted as the Hutts betray each other commonly, and Jabba likely did not trust any of them truly, or want to give any of them the bargaining chip of knowing Rada's whereabouts. It is also important to note that just like when the Emperor and Vader died in Episode 6, that was an important and crucial victory for the Alliance, but it wasn't like the Empire across the galaxy was like, oh no, we lost our biggest base, the war is over. The war continued for some years after that. That same mindset can be said of the Hutts. Jabba's death was a shock, for sure, but the Hutts still kept a grip on Tatooine and on the underworld across the galaxy. If you remember in the Clone Wars, we also get to see the Hutt Council. I believe Rada has no real claim to anything after being gone so long, but even still, he could attempt to skip over the remaining Hutt's power and make a power grab for his birthright to Jabba's throne and assets. I can't help but wonder, though, if Rada challenged Boba for rule of Tatooine, would it be during the early days where Boba is trying to secure his own rule, or would it be after Boba secures his rule that Rada would make a move? If my theory is right, this would be a very interesting and fun conflict to bring into the show. Some of Boba's men could even feel the title and assets should be Rada's by birthright, while the others could just side with him for more power. A likely example is this Klaatuinian that threatened Boba at the other end of the table, especially if I am right, and that is Barada from Return of the Jedi. Boba could have to deal with spies in his ranks, or since Boba talked of ruling with respect, could he work out a deal with Rada and become allies? I feel like if this theory is true, that this could bring so much fun to the show and really challenge Boba's rule. Another theory I have is that this first season will stay mainly on Tatooine. This theory I'm less confident in because they could immediately jet off and leave me looking like a donkey. But hear me out. If all the clips in this trailer are from episodes 1 and 2, we are not getting to see much of the overarching plot of the show. The first season could focus entirely on Boba's adventures and attempts to secure his rule and foothold on Tatooine, and I wouldn't mind that. The finale could end with him starting to reach out and expand his operations to other star systems. Or maybe even my Rada theory is correct, but the finale ends with Fennec saying, "We have a transmission from Nal Hutta," or something, and the season ends with Rada claiming his father's throne and Boba clenching his fist. Or I could be flat out wrong, and Boba could be all over the place, going to other planets and securing alliances and assets, or even old friends. My third theory is about bounty hunters. We know from teases that Din Djarin is going to make an appearance in at least one episode of the Book of Boba Fett. I think we will all enjoy the crossovers between the new era of Disney Plus Star Wars shows, but I do feel it could get a bit confusing for casual fans. However, some of the directors of the Book of Boba Fett have teased that we could get some returning bounty hunters, which I think we can all agree that besides Din Djarin, that means we are getting at least one other hunter in the show. So going into technicality, this could be High Slinger, Imbo, Lots Razi, or even some hunters from Empire Strikes Back that were hired to hunt down Han Solo, like Zuckuss, IG-88, Forlom, Dengar, or Bosk. A lot of these hunters' fates are unknown. If you're sitting there thinking, he forgot Aura Singh, I'll remind you that she is confirmed canonically dead in the Solo movie, killed by Tobias Beckett. Diving into this theory, they could include some of the lesser-known hunters like Zuckuss, Forlom, or Lasrazi as fun Easter eggs for hardcore fans, but I doubt they would focus on them since many casual fans wouldn't know them. One of the great things The Mandalorian has done is brought in new fans to Star Wars. This is because it has plenty of fun stuff for hardcore fans, but can also be watched for fun by casuals that solely watch the show and do not technically need to know the history of Star Wars to enjoy it. I feel the Book of Boba Fett will do the same. Plenty of callbacks and references for us hardcore fans, but also be made to be watchable for people that know little of Star Wars as a whole. Therefore, the hunters I feel could appear are Dengar or Bossk predominantly. IG-88 is less likely since they just had IG-11 in Mando Season 1. And although Embo would be cool, I don't think he will be in it. I've used evidence in the rest of the video, and there is no evidence for this. It's solely my opinion. I just do not think Embo will be in this. Dengar could be fun to see, but as my main theory for what bounty hunter will appear in the show, I'm going to go with Bossk. I would literally be so excited and happy to see Bossk again. The thing that makes me like him most and added to his character the best is the Clone Wars. In the Boba Fett books, we see Boba can't trust Count Dooku, and in the Clone Wars, we see Aurra Sing abandon him. Jango did not list Bossk as someone to be trusted in the Boba Fett books, but I find it interesting and cool that Bossk stuck with Boba in the Clone Wars, better than any of those people that his father Jango recommended. Bossk was also captured in Boba's attempt to avenge his father, and stuck by Boba's side in their years in prison. We never get to see this, but I bet Boba was insecure after escaping the Coruscant Supermax that Bossk would leave. But even still, Bossk stuck with Boba and watched his back during their mission in Season 4 of the Clone Wars. Now, we don't see any conversation between the pair in the famous lineup scene in Empire Strikes Back, but I hope the two are still allies in some way. I would be most pleased to see Boba visit Trandosha and to see Trandosha for the first time on screen, or even to see him find Bossk hunting Wookiees on a post-Empire Kashyyyk. Anyways, that is why I hope and think Bossk has the highest chances of appearing in the Book of Boba Fett. The fourth and final theory I have is about Boba's survival in his own show. I asked at least 10 people after the trailer released if they thought he would survive, and every single one of them said yes. I, however, am very worried that they brought Boba back after 37 years just to kill him off. I really hope they did not, as I feel Boba has so much to offer still. If you think about it, he has been super popular for 40 years without ever even being fully fleshed out. He's been popular this long, we all loved him from the original trilogy, and he's literally only in one fight sequence. I think a lot of people also misunderstand Boba's age. He looks almost elderly due to his scarring in The Mandalorian from the Sarlacc pit, but he is really about 41 years old in the Book of Boba Fett, which means fans should not be worried about if Boba can really fight still. Plus, I mean, we see him beheading someone. So yeah. But regardless of his age, it may seem unlikely to you guys in a way. It is unlikely that he will die to me too. I just feel like the chances of Boba surviving is 60 out of 100%. So in a way I agree that he could live, but to me the chances of him dying are too great and it makes me feel nervous for him. Although The Mandalorian has been some of the best Star Wars content I have seen in the last few years, I do hope that the Book of Boba Fett does not try to copy it. I hope that they dive away from the Old West aspect of The Mandalorian and do their own thing for the show, and so far, it looks promising. I am excited about the possibilities and can't help but wonder if the whole season will take place on Tatooine, or if the dynamic duo will go off-world for some reason. There is so much they could do with this show, and I'm so excited to see our King Boba Fett attempting to fasten his grip on Tatooine with respect, and also lose his cool across the way. Well friends, this brings us to the end of the trailer breakdown. Let me know what y'all think down in the comments. If you agree or disagree, let's talk about it. And if you guys enjoyed the breakdown and theories, make sure to drop a like and hit the bell, as it'll really help out the channel and it'll let me know if breakdowns are something I should keep trying in the future. You guys stay safe out there. Peace out.